Hey folks, it's Jim Butler from Hidden Histories of Leicester, and today I'm going to tell you some things that perhaps you didn't know about Leicester Market. Or perhaps I should say, markets. Leicester's first known market was in the 1st century AD, almost 2,000 years ago, in the Roman town. And it was here in Jubilee Square where the Roman Forum stood. The market was set up inside a huge open square and surrounded by colonnaded shops where traders could do their business and sell to the growing Roman town. By the 2nd century AD, the Roman town had expanded so much that the Forum could no longer deal with all its trading needs. Therefore, a new purpose-built, multi-storied indoor market hall was built called a Macellum, and it was placed just down the road from the Forum, behind me, here, just off High Cross Street. There's no record of where the Anglo-Saxon town held its market, but with a huge Anglo-Saxon settlement just at Southgate, and the town still big enough to have its own bishopric, I think it likely that the market still remained in the same area it had done before in the Roman era, near the Forum. In 1086, William the Conqueror's Domesday Book records this area is Cheapside. Cheap is an Old Norse word meaning to sell, suggesting that even in Viking times, this was where you would come to sell and buy things, i.e. a market. By the early 12th century, Leicester's first street market is being held every Wednesday close to the old Roman Forum and possibly where the Anglo-Saxon market was being held. In 1298, King Edward I gave the town of Leicester a new charter for a Saturday market to be held here in the marketplace. Not only could the new market sell all sorts of foodstuffs like grains, beans, meat and fish, it also sold wool, clothing and drapery in what the historian Charles Bilson referred to as the housewives' market. He's a braver man than me. Along the inside of the eastern wall of the medieval town, farmers would come and display their grains for sale, and the area soon became known as the Corn Wall. Outside of the medieval town is where you would buy barley, beside Bear Hill, which is now the clock tower. Later on, when the wagons couldn't get through the east gates, a market started out here that would sell hay, hence the Haymarket. Outside of the town, close to the southern wall, used to be where you could buy a horse or perhaps take it for a test ride. This became known as a horse fair, and hence the reason we have the name Horse Fair Street. Back inside the walled medieval town, the pig market, also called the Swine's Market, was held here on what we now call High Street. In the early medieval period, a sheep market was held here on Silver Street. Of course, it wasn't called Silver Street then, it was just called Sheep Market. But in 1506, when the sheep market moved to the east corner of the Saturday market, it appears some silversmiths moved into the area and the name was renamed Silver Street. In 1341, there's a reference to a paved cattle market somewhere near the sheep's market, possibly here on Loseby Lane. The Wednesday market was still going strong in the 16th century, only this time it had been expanded to be held on Fridays as well. And also it was running now the whole length of High Cross Street all the way down to Northgate. Also in the 16th century, a new structure is built. It consists of 8 stone pillars and a domed roof, and it is called the High Cross, and it is built right here next to the High Cross pub. The last surviving piece of that structure is the solitary pillar behind me that we now call the High Cross Monument. In the 1560s, Henry Hastings, the 3rd Earl of Huntingdon, bought a huge property here called Lord's Place, where High Cross now stands. However, he didn't want Swine Market as an address. How's he going to impress royalty with that sort of address? So he had the Swine Market moved to another part of the town, and he had the street name changed to High Street. The street that had already been called High Street was then renamed to High Cross Street. Those names have stuck ever since. In 1589, Queen Elizabeth I refers to the Saturday market in Leicester as the Saturday Shambles. Now, a shambles is a specific type of stall held by butchers where they would butcher their meat and sell it to the public. And it's nice to know that the trade is still happening close by today. However, the Saturday market wasn't the site of Leicester's only shambles, as there was another one here at Red Cross Street, or as we now know it, Peacock Lane. And the archaeology suggests there was another shambles here next to Holy Bones. But despite what appears to be a booming trade, in the 16th century, things for Leicester weren't looking that good. In 1587, High Street, what we now call High Cross Street, was described as being in great decay. And things got even worse in 1593, when a severe outbreak of plague meant that the whole town was cut off from the rest of the country. Sound familiar? In 1599, the mayor of the town writes to the Earl of Huntingdon, lamenting, "There is no cloth making, there is no trade. For 2,000 years the town has been here, and it's been never so poor as now." If he thinks that's bad, he should wait 50 years for the Civil War siege of Leicester. That's horrific. In the Georgian period, the traders by the Cornwall were finally given their own purpose-built building where they could sell and exchange their grain. It was built in 1748, right here where the current excavations are happening. And it was called the New Gainsborough. But 100 years later, the New Gainsborough was replaced with an even better purpose-built building where the traders could exchange all their goods. And it was called the Corn Exchange. By the 1870s, the livestock markets for sheep, pigs and cattle were moved out beyond the southern walls of the town to where the horse fair was. And here it stayed for the best part of 100 years. But in 1870, when the town council decided that the old Guildhall was no longer suitable for their needs, the cattle market, the livestock market was moved yet again, and on its site was built the brand new town hall, complete of course with ornate water fountain. The livestock market eventually moved to a new home on Freeman's Common, where pigs, sheep, cattle and horses were sold until the market was closed in 1988. Thankfully, the counting house and these amazing wrought iron gates still stand testament to the proud history of this site. In 1869, Leicester's grand new fish market was opened. The building was over 100 feet long and 30 feet wide, with a great glass domed roof and cast iron pillars, and even had its own ice house. How cool is that? Finally, in 1884, the ancient Wednesday market was closed and moved to the site of the Saturday market, ending almost 2,000 years of trading tradition in this part of the town. This fundamentally pivoted Leicester's shopping area to the east of the town, where arguably it stayed for the next 130 years, and perhaps didn't pivot back until the creation of the new High Cross shopping mall. Leicester Market continued to thrive, and the Rialto Bridge outside the Corn Exchange became a natural podium for mass events, be they royal visits or large-scale demonstrations. But it wasn't just the men giving the speeches, was it, Alice? Funny, I don't remember her being this quiet in 1911 when she was fighting for women's rights. In 1974, the old fish market was closed and the traders were moved to a new purpose-built indoor multi-storey market, along with traders in meat, confectionery, haberdashery, furnishings and everything else you can kind of think of. Come to think of it, it was extremely similar to the old Roman McKellen which stood in the town almost 2,000 years ago. Wow! It was about this time in the 1970s that the fixed market stalls and roof were introduced, which made Leicester Market Europe's largest outdoor market. As well as being home to many a friendly trader, including of course the Linekers, you'd also find most Saturday nights a town reveller having a little snooze on one of the wooden benches after perhaps one or two too many. For almost 2,000 years, Leicester's Markets has provided its citizens with an intoxicating array of sights and smells. Well, perhaps not the cattle and the sheep smells. But the diversity of produce has always reflected the diversity of Leicester's citizens, and it has always been a beating heart of our amazing town. And long may it continue.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. See what I mean? I hope you've enjoyed this little jaunt through Leicester's trading past, and if you do, like, subscribe and share. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.